Hey guys, this is Ashley Leftwich, and welcome to my Module 3 presentation for Trends and Best Practices, specifically looking at K-12 schools. And this is for ELRC 7500. So let's get started. And our agenda today, we're going to look at the Future Ready Schools framework, some exemplars of schools and areas that have implemented this framework, implications of this in my current workplace, and then any final thoughts and takeaways. So let's first take a look at this Future Ready Schools framework. And you see here, this is a visual that they have on their main page that tells about the gears. So they talk about their framework and their sections within that framework as a gear because it needs all of those pieces to work together to create this collaborative leadership that you see on the outside, along with the vision, plan, implementation, assessment, refinement pieces that are on the outside. So all of those come together to create that piece in the middle, the personalized student learning. And that is the main goal of Future Ready Schools framework, is personalized student learning. So their goal at Future Ready Schools is to help educators have an agency, a passion, and skills so that we can provide our students with not only a degree when they graduate high school, but we want them to be responsible citizens. We want them to be compassionate, productive, passionate about their things and their work. And we want to make sure that we are equipping them with the technology they need and not just basing their abilities based on their zip code. And that sometimes that is that harsh reality that their zip code can define them. And we don't want that anymore. We want to go past those barriers. So here are the 7 different framework gears that we have for the Future Ready Schools framework. And these gears, one of the driving pieces for this that I thought was interesting was this homework gap that they mentioned, that nearly 17 million of America's 53.1 million children are unplugged from instruction because their families lack home and internet access. And when we go to implications at my school, I can definitely attest to this and add more to that. But with the Rescue Plan Act of 2021, there's been federal investments to provide opportunities for education leaders to close these gaps. And these framework years are there to help with that. So to give tools and resources to create to lessen these gaps that these students are coming with. So these gears are curriculum, instruction and assessment, personalized professional learning, budget and resources, community partnerships, data and privacy, robust infrastructure, and use of space and time. And really all of these except for, I would say, the use of space and time were all pieces that we saw in previous weeks with the ITSE framework, and even with TEA's framework that I looked at last week and dissected, a lot of these things are clearly repetitive. And I feel like as we're going through this, if things are this repetitive and we see these pieces over and over again, and the research time and time again supports this, then we definitely don't need to go against the grain here and try to reinvent the wheel when clearly the research and data supports all of these things and the success of these things. And we're going to see that here with the exemplars. So the exemplars I looked at, there were several different pieces. I looked at it both from a teacher and district standpoint, but then I also looked at it from a leadership standpoint. So one of the things I really liked about the Future Ready Schools is that they have district pledge commitments. So these districts can pledge to commit to implementing innovative and equitable learning practices across their school system. And that is the first step in being a Future Ready school. And they talk about continuous improvement process, and it is a critical part of the community building process. And their resources, it lists 7 different commitments that a district would be pledging to do. And what I thought was interesting is that in the state of Texas, there are 196 Future Ready pledged districts in Texas. So first, when I saw that, I was like, oh, wow, that's so awesome, 196 school districts. But then I really started thinking about that, and I I kept gnawing on, okay, well, if there's 196 that are pledged districts, well, then how many school districts are in Texas? And there are over 1,000 school districts. So, sure, we have 200 here, but that is only 20%. And that's a small percentage. So, then my next question is, okay, well, if that's 20% of our school districts, then what is the other 80% doing? So, with that, that really makes me wonder, okay, well, what can we do next? And so one of the other pieces I really liked that I think would be a great exemplar is the leadership cohorts that Future Ready Schools offer. So this is a professional learning opportunity for um, school district teams, sorry, within a state or region. And so you're allowing for those cohorts that we talked about and that were encouraged by ITSE. Um, and this is a great way to figure out, okay, well, what works, what doesn't, how do we become this future ready school? Because clearly these 196 districts or 20%, they're on the way to closing gaps. And we can see that because they're implementing, as I go back here, um, these gears in the framework. So if those things are effective and we see that, then why not give us the tools and resources with a leadership cohort that help, find the camaraderie, one, because we find comfort in numbers, but then two, to have people that say, hey, this is what worked for us, maybe this can work for you as well. So with that, I was looking at implications in my workplace. And one of the things that I see definitely is data and assessment. And those kind of really go together. Um, we are definitely very data driven, I'd say, in my school district. We do unit tests often. We take our STAR tests, of course, and dig deep in that data. We also look at benchmarks throughout the year and different progress monitoring measurements. And all of that data and assessment, even though in the moment I'm like, oh my goodness, that is so much. That information is so helpful because then that shows me where are these students learning and growing. But also, okay, if whole group instruction, because there is a time and a place for it, but if whole group instruction isn't working for this kid, what are my next steps? What are my options? How can I personalize their learning with technology? And so there are opportunities for that to make those decisions for students. One of the things I really love about my district too is we are definitely um, a strong community and partnerships. And one example of this is our Career and Technology Education Center. We have many different skills, trades, resources from the community and the district that help students graduate with a certificate in welding, in a um, LVN license, with associate's degrees with our local community college, all sorts of things. And I think that's a great step in the right direction because not all students are going to be college ready. And I think that's something that we need to recognize, but then adversely, not all students are going to be military ready. So having those trades in place is awesome. And then the last place I see this implicated in my district would be with privacy. Privacy is definitely a top tier worry for my school with all of the ever changing things in the internet. And there's times where I am moaning and groaning about, oh, why is this blocked? Or, oh my goodness, this is annoying because, this security measure is in place. But at the same time, when I take a step back, I'm really thankful that those are there for us to keep us safe. So, my final thoughts. As I really sat and gnawed this through, the main thing that really just was an eye opener for me was how many districts in Texas were not future ready schools. And I understand maybe they're in other cohorts, and I'd be interested to see those numbers as well. But that was pretty mind boggling to me that only 20% were pledging to be future ready schools. Um, and in my district specifically, I definitely see those gaps. One of the things I started doing early on in my career was I don't send home homework, and that can be a pushback sometimes because when you have students who are going home to take care of other siblings, or at 12, 13, 14 years old, going to help mom at the restaurant, or going to help dad outside at the farm, and those kind of things, or babysitting siblings while parents go to work because they have 2 to 3 jobs. I took away that stressor of homework, and of course I encourage things like reading and practicing multiplication facts and that kind of thing. But I did not send home specific, you need to do this worksheet or you need to do this practice for homework, um, because of the unfortunate barriers for low income students. And one of those other things is internet. And we saw, I think I've mentioned time and time again, COVID was a huge eye opener for our community, because being in a more rural area, even though we're near the city of Tyler, which is a pretty large area, um, there's not very good internet out here. So infrastructure, of course, is a trouble not only with the school district, but within our community. Just this past week we had some massive winter storms hit our area, and all of us were not all of us, but many of us were out of power for several days. And on top of that, it seems like the wind blows funny and the internet goes down. So that was interesting to me, that if the future ready schools were framework was geared towards that homework gap, and that um, trying to close the gap, so that students aren't at a disadvantage just based on their zip code in their area. That was really important to me. So as I finish, I want to make sure to acknowledge some of the works cited. All of my information came from the Future Ready Schools website, and I've linked in several specific pages, but really it was a lot of digging and exploring and figuring out what was there. And I encourage you to do the same. It's really interesting and eye opening to see that. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great week.